Our modern day lifestyle does not lend itself to replenishing our body with much magnesium. So think of some of the magnesium rich foods, pound for pound. Pumpkin seeds, cashews, and almonds are three of the best.
Hey, Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sherry. It's so fun to be on Fall in Love with Fitness. I think everybody needs to fall in love with fitness. Am I right?
Yes, and it's also fun to feel good and I love your shirt. I was just telling you this. I have FOMO. I need this shirt because it is fun to feel good. And we are so okay with not feeling good. In fact, we've adapted to not feeling good and that's just kind of become our norm. We're tired all the time. We use coffee for pick-me-ups. We don't have great restful sleep. We don't think anything of it. We have terrible gut health. We're bloated. We are exhausted, and yet we keep going. And so I love our conversation today because we're going to talk about magnesium. And something I've learned from you that I didn't know before is that there's two kinds of cramps. And sometimes we have a cramp that's associated with a potassium deficiency, which is what our coaches used to tell us back in the day, and have a banana. And then there's another type of cramp that is all related to magnesium. And because you're the magnesium guy, before we start talking all about that, I think we have to start with your story. Why are you so fascinated and passionate about helping people restore their lifestyle and live on their highest potential in terms by using magnesium as the supplement?
When I was a kid, I grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and I played a ton of soccer, especially in the summer, lots of heat, lots of sweating. And at night, I just would have these awful leg cramps. And I remember like sneaking into my parents' room and being like sheepishly, Mom, can I please use the heating pad? And I wish my parents knew then what I know now, which is there's a reason that our leg cramps, those muscle cramps, will happen in the middle of the night. And there's also a reason why bananas probably aren't the answer. So I am so happy that I learned this interesting factoid from Dr. Decker Weiss. He's a naturopathic cardiologist. He's on Jigsaw Health's scientific advisory board. And he taught me the very important lesson that there are two types of leg cramps. So when you're in the midst of an activity, working out, playing a sport, whatever it may be, and you begin to cramp up, that's a sign of a potential potassium deficiency where potassium and sodium are out of balance. But if you get the cramps after the fact, like Charlie horses in the middle of the night, that's a sign of a potential magnesium deficiency where magnesium and calcium are likely out of balance.
Wow. Wow. I had no idea. And I remember there was a period in my life where I suffered from those leg cramps. And they're excruciating. Like once they kick in and then your whole entire calf just locks in. And I would remember asking myself, do I flex or do I not? Like which way do I go? With the cramp or against the cramp? And it would always be this thing. And then I'd be sore for a few days afterwards. And I had no
Yeah.
idea it was related to magnesium. And most of us know magnesium as being this sleep aid. It's supposed to help us get better sleep, but there's a lot more to that. And on the show, we talk a lot about stress. We talk a lot about the nervous system. We talk about regulating the nervous system. And one thing I've also seen in some of the things that you've shared with me is that stress actually depletes magnesium deficiency. So I think before we get into all that, let's just talk a little bit about magnesium deficiency itself. Why are we deficient in magnesium?
Boy, our modern day lifestyle does not lend itself to replenishing our body with much magnesium. So think of some of the magnesium rich foods, pound for pound. Pumpkin seeds, cashews, and almonds are three of the best. But
Okay.
now let's think about how we deplete our body in magnesium. Number one, just living, being alive, our body uses magnesium. Magnesium is a part of the chain that creates ATP, which is, you will recall as a biochemist, adenosine triphosphate, right? So that's the energy molecule. And of course, we need energy to live. Well, magnesium is what fires that molecule. It's actually Mg2 plus ATP. So we have to have magnesium to live, but we don't tend to get a lot of it in our diet. There was a study from, boy, 20, 30 almost years ago, the NHANES study, a study of nurses, very, very large study that said at least 68% of nurses were not getting enough magnesium to meet the recommended daily intake. So two-thirds of nurses were not getting enough magnesium. So next, let's look at, well, what are the things that magnesium does inside of the body? A friend of mine, magnesium researcher Morley Robbins, he's the creator of the root cause protocol. I would encourage your audience to check out the root cause protocol when they get a chance. So there's a often quoted saying about magnesium where it's involved in at least 300 biochemical reactions inside of the body. Morley likes to say it's the conductor of the symphony. And what he discovered is that number 300 actually comes from the 1950s. It was a best guess by Harvard medical professor Dr. Burt Valley saying, I think magnesium is involved in at least 300 biochemical reactions. Well, here we are 60, 70 years later, and what Morley has discovered is that magnesium is involved in at least, wait for it, 3,751 biochemical reactions.
Wow.
10 times more than what Dr. Valley estimated in the 1950s. So magnesium is literally doing things all over your body. And leg cramps is one of the first and easiest signals to determine, hey, I might be low in magnesium.
Right. Right. But before we get to the leg cramps, what could be some symptoms of magnesium deficiency that we could start to notice?
Well, low energy, trouble sleeping, constipation, those are typical signs.
Mhm.
Even kind of that eye twitch that people will get, that's a potential sign of magnesium deficiency.
Okay. Okay. So there's other signs before it gets to the cramps. Because once we're at the cramps, that's now the big red flag that we're really deficient. And so how long would it take to replenish the magnesium deficiency?
It probably depends which form you take and how much of it you take. I really have kind of three favorite forms of magnesium, and we can get into those if you
Yeah.
want. But magnesium glycinate is
Mhm.
probably the best all around form.
Okay.
It's magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine, and
Mhm.
that has the added benefit of kind of helping brain chatter. So if you're laying in bed at night and you're thinking about all those things that you didn't get done during the day and kind of making your mental list, magnesium glycinate can actually help to calm that brain chatter down, in addition to helping to prevent the nighttime Charlie horse leg cramps.
Yeah, that's the one I actually take right now. And you mentioned nuts. So you mentioned a few nuts as being high sources of magnesium. So how much do we have to consume? And I know this is such a wide open question because it's going to depend on body weight and size and all these things. But how much do we have to consume in order to actually meet our needs?
So the FDA recommends 420 milligrams per day for men and women.
Okay.
Dr. Mildred Seelig wrote a book called The Magnesium Factor, and she had what I think is a much better formula for dosing magnesium and trying to reach an optimal dose rather than just sort of a recommended daily intake
Right.
to be the minimum. So
Right.
Mildred Seelig, her formula is 5 milligrams per pound of body weight. So for every 100 pounds of body weight, that's 500 milligrams. So I'm close to 200 pounds. That means I need to be getting each day from all sources about 1,000 milligrams of magnesium. Morley Robbins, who I referenced earlier, he added a corollary increase with stress.
Right.
Because when we're under stressful conditions, our body needs more energy. And when it needs more energy, that means it needs more magnesium.
Right.
So for me, how do I get 1,000 milligrams a day of magnesium? I actually created a little cheat sheet. It's my top 5 favorite ways of getting magnesium. And it actually starts with supplements,
Mhm.
because supplements, I can guarantee the exact amount that I'm needing to get. So the first product that I use is from our company, Jigsaw Health, Mag SRT. It's a sustained release technology. So it's basically high dose, but it breaks down slowly over time. I get 500 milligrams from 4 tablets of Mag SRT. At night, I use Mag Soothe, which is the magnesium glycinate that we talked about. That's 200 milligrams. So I've got basically 70% of my magnesium dosage covered from supplements. Now, let's talk about foods because I love pumpkin seeds. I put them almost every day into my yogurt and into the salad that I use. Pumpkin seeds for each ounce have, let me look at the math again real quick. That's what I thought. Okay, so each ounce of pumpkin seeds contains 160 milligrams of magnesium.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, a fourth of a cup contains 160
Right.
milligrams of magnesium. For almonds and cashews, it's 60 milligrams of magnesium per ounce. So between the those three nuts, I'm able to get roughly 200 or so milligrams per day from those nuts and seeds, which are great to snack on.
Yeah.
Quick note though, if you're eating those, I recommend doing sprouted organic
Yeah.
rather than doing roasted because roasted will also almost always be in a seed oil, and then you're getting those unhealthy seed oils and unhealthy omega-6 fatty acids. So, quick tip on that. Finally, the last thing that I will almost always do is square of dark organic chocolate
Oh, that's
because
terrible.
chocolate is well, chocolate is high in magnesium as well. And one of the theories that some people have thrown out there is that the chocolate cravings that you get is actually a bit of a sign of a magnesium deficiency.
Wow. Wow. I had then super deficiency in magnesium at one point. You know, as you're sharing these all of these foods, I'm thinking about diet culture. And when I think
Mm.
about people being on their macro diets and how diets in general really just focus on get your proteins, get your carbohydrates, get your fats. And most people are counting calories and they're not even looking at all of these other things and realizing that all of these foods come with all of these nutrients that our body actually needs. And so when we're being so restrictive and we decide I'm not going to eat any nuts because I don't want to put any fats, and fats there's so many calories and I'm going to avoid them, we're actually depleting our body of these essential nutrients. And what's really also important is just understanding that if you are more active or if you are exercising, that's another form of stress. So you're saying add even more if you're stressing your body even more, and exercise is such a huge added stress to the body. You know, I have to admit, when I first started in the health and fitness space, my mindset was really all about supplements. If you eat properly, you don't need supplements, and supplements are not necessary, and we don't need to add supplements to our foods and all these things as long as we're getting a complete diet. But I have recently changed that perspective because, first of all, I went through a lot of gut health issues myself, but also realizing, well, how much do I have to consume certain foods to really to meet my needs? And like you said, with supplements, it's easy to calculate. It's really easy to know exactly how much you're getting, and you see the effect right away. So I take all of these supplements, and once I'm out of my supplements and my magnesium, I'm going to check out some of your stuff, and for sure we're going to add all that to the show notes. But I think we need to change that perspective in general around supplements, and also realizing that a lot of the foods that we are consuming from the grocery store, by the time it goes from farm, supposedly, to our plate, it's already lost a lot of its nutrient content. And so what we're getting is food that is very scarce in nutrients. It sure has the calories and maybe fiber, but the actual nutrients that we need, we don't end up actually getting the amounts that are required. So tell me a little bit more about how we can start to maybe get a little bit more specific for each person in terms of if there is a pregnant person, for example, or if there's a person who's recovering from a particular disorder or disease. What can we actually do in terms of our magnesium supplements to make sure that we are getting the right amount? Is there another equation? Is there another thing that we have to do to meet those requirements?
Yes, and I think you nailed it. There's a real problem in North America. I know you're in Canada, as you said. I'm in Arizona. And there's a real problem with the food supply. Our team is actually working on a new featured documentary called Breaking Big Food.
Mm-hmm.
Subtitle is How the American Food System Went Rotten and How It's Being Revived. Um, Supplements have become, I think, a necessity, and that is a detriment, really, to society. We should be able to eat food that has good calories and good nutrients.
Right.
And maybe supplements wouldn't be necessary if the food supply was that clean and filling. I don't know. But we certainly need to turn things around. And I think that the pendulum has started to swing the other way,
Mm-hmm.
which is great. It's about dang time.
Yeah.
So the question that you asked is how can someone maybe individualize their magnesium intake? The first thing I think is, like we said, to look at what your weight is to determine what your optimal intake should be. And again, that formula is pretty simple, 5 milligrams for every pound of body weight. So if you're 100 pounds, well, nobody's probably 100 pounds, but if you're like 150 pounds, that means about 750 milligrams per day of magnesium. Not what the FDA says in terms of the RDI of
Yeah.
420 milligrams, but what a more optimal intake. And then really just kind of judging by your own amount of uh, stress, which could be exercise, but it could also be family issues and holidays and work and answering too many emails, that whole kind of thing. I think you just really have to get more intuitive about your own body, listen, being quiet and listening to yourself. Inside of you is everything that you need. The answers really are there. But I think we all, myself included, can get too distracted by our phones and distracted by life and everything that's going on, distracted by uh, what is it, the annoying roommate that's in our head,
Right.
as described in the great book Untethered Soul.
Oh, so
And
good.
yeah,
Yes.
so I think that there's an element of that listening to yourself, and then maybe a cheat code that you could use specifically for magnesium is if you haven't taken enough, you can use a magnesium lotion for targeted muscle relief.
Mm-hmm.
My company makes a very good one called Mag Relief. There are a number out there that are very good. Generally, magnesium chloride as a lotion is very good. And I myself am a very diehard pickleball addict.
Yes, I
And
can
there are
imagine.
times,
Yeah.
there are times where I will outplay my magnesium intake for the day, and either on my feet or my calves that night, I'll kind of feel like, ooh, I'm really sore. So I'll bust open the bottle of Jigsaw Mag Relief and get some Mag Relief.
Right. Wow. Yeah, I'm going to ask you about the pickleball in just a moment, but I'm a bath person. I don't know what it is. I love taking baths. And I know there's a way that we can also get some magnesium from certain things that we'll put in the bath. What can you share around that?
Epsom salts are essentially magnesium sulfate, and Epsom salts, I think, have been used for millennia. It is a very healing, it's a very good way to get magnesium sort of into the tissue, into the epidermis that gets it into the bloodstream. And yeah, I'm a big fan for others. I'm not really a bath person, but as you say that, and
Yeah.
I go back to what I was saying about being still, I'm like,
Right.
maybe I should be a bath person.
Yeah, you really should. Like, there's something about it. I don't know if you ever watched that Seinfeld episode where Kramer was like doing everything in the shower. He was in the shower washing his dishes. I'm like that
Yes.
person. Okay, so I'm
You like
saying
making salad in the shower?
literally, I'll make myself something yummy to eat, and I'll sit in the bath, and I'll just have my salts going, and I don't know. It's
Oh
it's weird,
gosh.
but it's my thing. Let's come back to the pickleball thing because there's more fun facts about you. So you and your wife, you built a boutique indoor pickleball stadium, and you have a six-part documentary series. Okay, get into that. Tell me more about it because this is really cool.
Well, she and I fell in love with pickleball in 2018 and just Absolutely. It was such a fun sport. I grew up playing a little bit of tennis. She really had no racket sports background, but there we were hitting this little plastic ball over the court, over the net on the court and having fun. And we just fell in love with it. So fast forward a couple of years, Jigsaw Health launched a product called Pickleball Cocktail,
Oh,
an electrolyte powder that has 800 milligrams of potassium. That's about two bananas worth of potassium. And by the way, the reason that we did it as an orange flavor is because I don't like bananas. But I was there on the pickleball court playing and starting to cramp up. And I was like, wait a second. I take plenty of magnesium. Why am I getting cramps? These must be potassium deficiency cramps,
wow.
thus pickleball cocktail. And what led to then that product, we sponsor and still do sponsor a number of the top pros in the sport. And in 2022, we opened the Orchard at Jigsaw Health. Some space at the end of our building became available, and we were able to put not one, but two indoor pickleball courts into that space. And our amazing creative team became a live television production team. And we would live stream rather, Tuesday night pickleball at the Orchard. And basically, that led into hiring a documentary film crew to film season one of the Arizona Pro Pickleball League that we started. And Breaking Pickleball, the documentary, it's out on Amazon Prime Video, definitely in America, I think also in Canada.
Check it out.
But check out Breaking Pickleball on Amazon Prime Video. It's a fun story, even if you don't like pickleball. Pickleball is just the medium for a very, I think, touching human story about up and coming professionals trying to be their best, and the storyline follows them as they're working their way through the season to try and win the Orchard Championship Cup.
That's so awesome. And I love these stories because it's so clear that you work really hard, you have a successful business, you help people really transform the quality of their lives, and you also have all this other stuff going on. One being that you're on the board of Consumers for Dental Choice, a nonprofit that has been fighting to ban mercury amalgams. So that's silver filling. So tell me more about that. Where did that passion come from?
Well, the genesis of that is really from my dad's own health journey. So, my dad and I started Jigsaw Health in 2005, almost 20 years ago. The year before, he published a book called Wellness Piece by Piece.
Mm,
That book is still available on Amazon. And in it, he describes a number of the quote pieces to his health puzzle, thus the name Jigsaw Health. And one of the major pieces was the 14 mercury amalgams that he had in his mouth since he was a teenager.
wow.
AKA silver fillings, mercury amalgams, they leach mercury into the body.
Right.
And if you have the kind of genetic expression for the APOE gene that my dad has, he's a poor detoxifier of heavy metals. So the question has always been, well, some people have mercury amalgams and don't have any health problems.
Right.
Well, others do, and it maybe probably is linked to their ability or inability to efficiently excrete the heavy metal.
Wow.
So I joined the board of Consumers for Dental Choice, I think it was in 2006, and I've been working with them to ban mercury amalgams in the United States and around the world. And about 3 years ago, I believe it was, we had a major change in the FDA where they said, finally, mercury amalgams no longer allowed for at-risk individuals, which includes pregnant women, children, people with a allergy to to mercury. Mercury is a neurotoxin. Everyone's allergic to it, okay?
Yes, right.
At least we got them to do something, and the amount of amalgams being placed are going down. It's not fully banned. There's actually one manufacturer in Australia, Southern Dental Industries, that we are right now currently an active campaign to encourage them to discontinue amalgam manufacturing. They've already stated that they're going to stop in 2027, or maybe it's 2028, but we're saying that's not soon enough.
Mm,
They've acknowledged the science is clear. It's a pollution for the environment. It's not good for humans. Mercury amalgams, folks in the audience, if you have them, I would highly recommend searching for a dentist that removes them safely. Just Google safe mercury amalgam, and you will find a list of dentists. I believe it's the IAOMT that has a list of safe dentists that will remove them. Because if you go in, they're gonna put an oxygen mask on you. They're gonna really be protective because if you go in and just remove them in a normal way, it vaporizes the mercury. You get so much exposure. The dentist, the dental assistant, everybody in the office gets so much exposure. So there's really an important way to do amalgam removal safely.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's really intense and that's super interesting. Again, and you're just such a fascinating person. And is your father okay after
Oh,
having
yeah.
removed?
Yeah. As you're saying that, I'm like, I have some weird interests.
I,
I don't
you
know
know,
how these things all align, but somehow
it
I've figured out how to do
it
it.
is hilarious because I
And
was just about to ask you as my final question. You're such a fascinating person, Patrick. What other weird things can you share with us that I mean it's so cool because again you're just so real and I know that you were in a band. You were the lead singer
oh
and
gosh.
also a guitarist in a Weezer cover band, but tell me, do you still play music? Tell me more. Tell me more weird things. We need to hear more weird real things
We can
before we
definitely
let you
do
go.
another half hour on that for sure. Let me first answer your question by saying, yes, my father is doing well.
Great.
Once he got the mercury amalgams removed, that was really step one in stopping the problem. But he found over years that he needed to remineralize his body. That's where a lot of Jigsaw Health formulas came from. My dad scratching his own itch
Right.
and things like our probiotics, where
Mm,
he had numerous gastrointestinal problems, and he would find that most probiotics that he took would give him an upset stomach. And what he learned was, oh, it's the prebiotics, the FOS, fructooligosaccharides.
right.
Those are giving me problems. So, like Jigsaw Health Essential Blend probiotics doesn't contain any prebiotics, and yet it still works great because it's 25 billion strands of five different really powerful strains that are very helpful. So, you know, just another one of the products that my dad created to scratch his own itch. And yes, I was a professional musician with my wife for
That's
about
cool.
10 years. We played in a cover band together. Previous to that, I was the lead singer of a Weezer tribute band called Bud Weezer.
That's hilarious. Love it. Love it. Wow. Well, this has been such a beautiful conversation. And as we sign off, is there anything else you wanted to share today?
I was listening to one of your recent podcasts because I always like to listen to hear, what questions the hosts ask and what subjects they talk about. And I thought you recently shared a wonderful story about your own health journey and your discussion about mindset, I think is so super important. And I will admit that forever up until recently, I kind of like blew off a lot of mindset. It's like, yeah, mindset, mindset. Well, recently I have discovered Dr. Joe Dispenza and Dispenza Meditations and attended a 7-day meditation retreat with my wife. And I realized, yeah, my mind was blown. I realized that I had some programming running subconsciously that I didn't know about that was like, wow, I'm not loving myself. Like I, I'm number one, not loving myself, and number two, I'm constantly in a fight or flight mode. And
Yeah.
one of the things that came to me was this realization that I practice arguments.
Huh.
Like I will catch myself thinking about an argument that I have or that I had, or an argument that I might have, where I'm having that argument in my brain. And I realized the body doesn't have any sense of time. So it doesn't know if it's in the past or the future. If you're practicing that argument, your body is creating chemicals. It's creating cortisol. Your adrenals are running and saying, we're in that argument right now. And it was such a major revelation for me that I highly recommend that your audience does take seriously what you talk about, that athlete mindset, and focuses on their mindset. And I would say that The Dispenza meditations that I have been doing in the last, I guess, 2 months now have really been life-changing. And one of the things that my wife noticed was like, hey, you know what? You're not bouncing your leg as much.
Huh.
Like you used to all the time be bouncing your leg real fast at dinner, at breakfast, at wherever.
Wow.
She's like, you stopped doing that. And I think that was a very important signal to me that I'm like, okay, these meditations are working.
Yeah. Yeah. So good. And I love Joe Dispenza and I love how he presents it and it's so tangible. And it's really all the same thing. What you and I are talking about today is really about regulating the nervous system. And we're just locked into this society of go, 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 do more. It's got to be perfect, and less is not acceptable. And there's no such thing as failure. And it's so driven in that way that we don't even know anymore what it means to feel safe. And
Yeah.
that feeling of safety is not that there's no saber-toothed tiger trying to chase me or there isn't a direct threat in my house, but it's all in my mind, the not enoughness, the not good enough, that
Mm.
everything is not enough. It's constantly living in this scarcity, and we've just accepted it. And our government says that, and our society says that,
Yeah.
and our entire life is about having more. Even when we have plenty, we're not appreciative of it. We want more and more. And so this is such an important conversation. It's all the work that I do, really helping people shift from that mindset of the not enough, of the scarcity, of the I can't to I don't, and really getting more into the core of who they are. And it's so amazing when you start from this place. And I love what you said about how the body has no idea. Whatever you think, it just reacts to it.
Yeah.
It's living it, it's feeling it, it's emotions. Our emotional body is so incredibly powerful, and it's from that body that all of our behavior is dictated, whether that means we're going to take action towards what we want, or we're going to allow fear and doubt and worry to really get in the way of moving towards our highest self. So it's so
Yeah.
beautiful to hear that. And I hope you continue to follow him. From here, I'll tell you, Patrick, it's just going to continue to evolve.
Oh,
And
for
it's just,
sure.
yeah, it's just such a beautiful space. I've been to Dr. Joe a couple times. And from there, it's just evolved into other practices. And it's, you start now living it. And I think one thing that I love that he says as one of my biggest takeaways is that you don't meditate for that hour that you meditate for, you meditate for the rest of the day. It's
Yeah.
that hour that's supposed to give you that feeling the entire day.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And for the audience that maybe doesn't meditate, Dr. Joe has 15 meditations,
yeah,
or sorry, 15-minute meditations
yeah.
that are still a great way to start the day and mentally get you into a wonderful place. If I am so lucky to get to do fall in love with fitness with you again here, Sherry. Next time, I'll tell the story about how on day 3 of the 7-day meditation, I spontaneously undeviated my septum.
Huh.
But we're just going to leave that as a cliffhanger for next time.
Well, there's going to be a next time then. I love
Okay,
it.
good.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for your time, Patrick. I really love this conversation.
It's my pleasure. So much fun.